I'm Katie White, and this is By the Book, Enhancing Relationships Through Literature. My mission here at By the Book is to connect you with books that foster personal growth and strengthen relationships with family and friends. I believe the best relationship advice is already out there, and I'm here to help you discover it. So today we have my uncle Dave Specht. Dave is a senior fellow at the Drucker School of Management, an author of 2 books, his most recent being The Family Business Whisperer. He's the father of 6 lovely children, my cousins, and his professional mission is to preserve families and perpetuate business. So, without further ado, Dave Specht.
Hi, Kate.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for making this happen with me today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so before we get started, I want to hear about your peach and your pit of your life recently. What's the best and maybe one of the hard things going on currently?
Well, I would say one of the peaches of my life is I just recently started working with 2 incredible families and also the Bank of Hawaii.
Wow.
And with each of those, it just feels like an incredible blessing because they're at interesting points where I feel like I can help them and be of incredible service. And yeah, it just feels like all of them were kind of blessings that didn't come out of nowhere. I've been working on them for a while, but they're connected to the pit of just a couple months ago, my role as director of the Global Family Business Institute at the Drucker School finished. Mm-hmm. So I've essentially pivoted, and they didn't renew the contract, which was a little bit of a gut punch, but anyways, they're going through difficult times. So I pivoted to having my own consulting practice, and I've always done consulting on the side, but it hasn't been like the main and only source of income. So I guess the pit was, just moving on from a full-time role at the Drucker School. But the peach came quickly right after with these 2 incredible families and the Bank of Hawaii. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love how your peach and pit are connected.
They're definitely connected.
How they just kind of led to each other. That's
and
awesome.
I couldn't have said yes to the peach without the pit. Because I wouldn't have had the bandwidth.
Dang.
So actually it was kind of beautiful.
That's that could be a whole conversation in and of itself. Okay. Well, awesome. Dave, tell us which book you chose to talk to us about today and why.
All right. So the book is called How Will You Measure Your Life? And it was written by the Harvard Business School professor Clayton Christensen. And the co-author is Karen Dillon. Karen Dillon is the editor of the Harvard Business Review, or was at the time for basically 10 years. And at the end of each semester, at the end of each year, Clayton Christensen would gather his class before they graduated, and he'd give this one speech, How Will You Measure Your Life? Mm-hmm. And he would ask them 3 questions. And this is very much not like a Harvard or business school class. He asked them, how can you find happiness in your professional life? How can you find happiness in your personal life? And how can you stay out of jail? Those were the 3 questions. The third question really was about how can you maintain your integrity? He talked about peers that he had in business school who were incredibly driven, incredibly smart, but at some point had made choices that brought their integrity into question, whether that was making bad choices in their relationship that led to divorce and not having relationships with their kids, or compromising their standards in business and ultimately, ending up in jail because of bad decisions. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that's kind of the 3 parts to his lecture, How Will You Measure Your Life, which then became like a wildly viral article in Harvard Business Review, which then it was encouraged that he explain more and expound more on it, and then that became the book.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
So how were you introduced to this book? How did you find it?
So I serve as an advisor to Philanthropies, which is connected to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And every 2 years we host a big conference for advisors that work with families. And so we basically went to him to see if he would speak at our conference. Others knew about him, and he's been wildly famous for a long time. He's since passed, but anyways, it was really through that conference that I got to know his book and and learned about the theories that he puts forth.
Well, okay, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so now we've gotten to the part of the podcast where Dave is going to teach us about a main principle the book teaches or some of his main takeaways and how that relates to relationships. So I'll let you take it from here.
Well, one of the things that Clayton Christensen is really known for is his theories. And he doesn't like to give his opinion, but this is what he says. He says, I don't have an opinion on that. The theory has an opinion. And so people would come to him from they mostly CEOs from major companies, and some of the companies he didn't have any background in the industry. And so he was always called upon to say, hey, we want to bring you in, we want to talk about what's going on, and then we'd like to get your opinion on this. And he was very slow to give his opinion, but quick to offer up his theories, and then they could come to the conclusion based on the theory that he put forth, how that would apply in their business. And one of those theories was disruptive innovation. And basically the way the theory goes is that the smaller companies, the incumbents, those that are coming into the market, have the opportunity to disrupt the bigger companies because they're more agile, they can make decisions faster, they don't have a lot of historical bias towards a product that has worked for a long time. Like a lot of bigger companies will stick with a product that's worked and made a lot of money, maybe for too long. And so the smaller companies can come in and disrupt the industry, go and attack a problem that is kind of on the horizon and be able to disrupt a major business. So one example in the book that's given is he was brought in to talk to the Department of Defense, and Karen Dillon tells the story that he was worried about this because he didn't know anything about the defense industry. I don't know anything about war. What am I going to tell these people? And so it wasn't even really clear who he would be talking to, but it was the complete chief joints of staff for the Department of Defense.
Oh my gosh.
And so again, he's this combination of incredibly wise, one of the smartest people ever, but so humble. So one of the first things he did was he basically said, I don't know anything about war. I don't know anything about the Department of Defense, but I can share my theories, and maybe then we can talk about how those theories may or may not apply. And one of the stories was around terrorism. The Department of Defense wanted to know, is there a better way that we can fight against terrorism? And so anyways, this theory of disruptive innovation kind of played out with, okay, there has been this way of doing war in the past, and terrorism is not following the same rules of the way of doing war in the past. Anyway, so he presents his theory, and then he does not give an opinion on what they should do, how they should do it, but all of them know about war. They know about what's going on, what was happening with terrorism at the time. And anyway, so it's a pretty interesting example of how he put forth his theory and let them kind of construct their own opinions. And the beautiful thing about his theories is that they're not just they're not just business theories. You can take them into your personal life and apply them and kind of work through whatever you're going through. So it's kind of, anyways, that's why I think the book has been so popular, is because it can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah. That's really a powerful concept. And I think that that's what a lot of good like life coaches, therapists, counselors, consultants try to do is to give people the tools to be able to like see their life through this filter of like a theory of whatever it is, and then ask them, what do you think that means? Because when people come up with their own answers to their questions, I think people are way more likely to actually listen and follow through, rather than if I just sit here and tell you how to live your life, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really powerful approach.
Well, it's like in sales, like if you can get someone to say what their problem is, then they'll likely let you offer a solution. But if you go to them and you're like, you have this problem, I see that you have this issue, and I have the answer as well, you put people on the defensive. So kind of this middle ground of interested in others, figuring out what matters to them, maybe what is painful to them, and then being able to offer help. I mean, I think of you with what you're getting ready to study and therapy, and likely people will be more open to changing the patterns in their life if you can, through good questions, help them come to their own opinion about what choices they're making, and then offer alternate paths, and then they choose, because ultimately as humans we want to be in charge of our lives, and we want to make choices. We don't want to be acted upon. So I can see that, like, as a consultant, this might be harder, because asking great questions and helping lead someone to their own conclusions oftentimes takes longer.
Right.
Then, especially because oftentimes we see what the issue is. It's like, no, you just need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work.
No.
And so, anyways, I love the book for that purpose, because I feel like it, I use it every day in consulting with businesses and families. They don't need to be told what to do. They need help with facilitation to get to their own conclusions, and then they may need help with holding them accountable to choices that they make, similar with again the work that you're going to do.
Yeah.
They may need help finding the tools, but getting them to that place so they can discover their own issues and even their own solutions. The likelihood is that they won't necessarily become dependent upon you as a counselor, or dependent upon me as a consultant, but we'll be the facilitators of them coming to their own kind of conclusions and finding their own way.
Yeah. And that's like something with like therapy and counseling, as I pursue that more, that I don't want people to become reliant on me forever, that I want to basically work myself out of a job.
Yeah.
That, like, I want to be so good at asking questions and helping other people come to their solutions and giving people tools and theories to use, like, without me, that they can become independent in their own lives.
Yeah, because there's plenty of people to help.
Exactly.
You don't have to make 5 people dependent upon you for the rest of their life.
Exactly. So then, like, word of mouth basically is kind of how I see that going, of like, okay, she was able to help me learn these things. I want that for you as well. And I think that's like the most powerful marketing ever. And that sounds like a lot of what you do is like a lot of word of mouth, because you're good at what you do and you're looking to help individuals and build like real relationships, rather than just trying to get paid.
Yeah, well, I've never thought of myself as a consultant or as a salesperson. Especially with this work, it's like people have to really want to change.
Yeah.
And you can't sell someone into wanting to change.
Yeah.
You need to be top of mind so that people will think of you when they do want to change, or when they do want to make a shift. But we're not going to change people that aren't ready to change anyways. When people want help, we have to be there from an awareness standpoint, but ultimately, if they're ready, like, they'll make progress, and if they're not, they won't.
Yeah. So another thing that I was just thinking about with like more intimate relationships, I guess, with like parents, friends, like outside of a professional realm, I think that this approach is really powerful for that too. And I think that that's something that I need to work on, is I'll like someone I'm like really close to, I'll see their problem and I'll just tell them what it is. Be like, listen, like, this is the problem, you need to fix it. And I'm coming at it of like, I'm only telling you this because I love you. I'm only so blunt. I'm only so direct because I love you and I want you to be able to change. But I don't think it's often received that way, depending on the relationship, the person or whatever. And so I think that this principle could really help a lot of people in their relationships with friends and family as well, if you're willing to step back and be a better listener and ask better questions.
Yeah.
So, and then going along with that, I don't know if you still have, you know, that game that you made for a while that was like the Inspired Questions. Is that still a thing? Is that like an app or something?
I had to shut it down as an app when I joined a major bank about 8 years ago. The cards still exist, but anyways, I'm getting ready to reboot all those. Okay. It's going to be called Courageous Conversations instead of, it's going to be rebranded.
Okay, yeah. Cool. I'm excited for that. I want the link
all right.
when that happens.
I'll get it to you.
All right. Well, Dave, who would you recommend this book to and why?
Well, the first audience is Clayton Christensen's audience, which is people that are going to be leaders in their business, leaders in businesses, but leaders in families. Again, back to those 3 questions: how can you find happiness in your personal life? How can you find happiness in your professional life? And how can you maintain your integrity? So, the natural audience is business leaders, but honestly, anyone that's going to lead a family, lead a church, lead a community organization can benefit from the book. So, that's not a very laser-focused answer, but that's kind of what I got.
Perfect. Alrighty, and with all this information from the book based off of its principles, what would you invite our audience to do about it?
Well, there's a lot of personal reflection that has to come into place, and being honest with yourself about how you're doing with your personal integrity, how you're doing, how happy are you in your personal life? And if you're not really happy, like, what needs to change? So I would just invite people to invest time in themselves. Oftentimes we just get so busy, or we fill our time with meaningless scrolling that we don't allow reflection time for us to say, how am I doing in my personal life?
Yeah.
How happy am I in my professional life? And in what ways am I maintaining my integrity, or in what ways have I allowed my integrity to slip? So I'd say give yourself time to do that. You might even need to make yourself a calendar invite and block the time. Seriously, because it just won't happen. We don't invest in ourselves very much.
Yeah. I know if I don't put something in my calendar, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to accept that invitation. I'll follow up with you.
Awesome.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
These are like pretty heavy things kind of to think about. So I would just encourage you and all the listeners to be kind to yourself as you're going through this process, because it can feel like, as you're like looking at your life, sometimes it can feel like the things that come up most readily are the things we're not doing right. So I would say be kind to yourself in the process. The whole purpose is to just become better, not to beat yourself up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate your time and your preparation and just the person that you are and just how you decide to live your life. So thank you, Uncle Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Love you.
Love you too. Thank you to our audience for joining us today on Buy the Book. We hope that you've enjoyed your time with us. The link to the book on Amazon and Audible will be in the show notes. Let us know in the comments if you end up reading a book that you want to be on the podcast, or in your main takeaways of this podcast. Next week's episode will be released next Tuesday at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And please let us know what we can do to be better. Follow on Instagram, Buy the Book with Katie. This is the new Instagram page for the podcast. There will be updates and more info on our great guests and incredible books. Thank you so much.